think he'll change. He is committed to his.
The royal family is in turmoil after a stunning revelation from the man closest to Princess Anne. For decades, Sir Timothy Lawrence, former Vice Admiral and Anne's devoted husband, remained a quiet presence in the background of royal life. He observed, he endured, and he stayed loyal. But now, he has broken his silence with a secret so dark about Queen Camilla, it could shake the public's perception of her forever. The tension between Princess Anne and Camilla isn't new. It's a cold war that's been simmering for decades. Though tied by marriage and royal duty, the two women could not be more different. Their relationship has never been warm or sisterly. It began to sour in the 1970s, when Anne was romantically involved with Andrew Parker Bowles. Though deeply fond of one another, Anne and Andrew never married, reportedly due to royal objections over Andrew's Catholic background. Shortly after, Andrew married Camilla in 1973. For Anne, it was a blow, one that quietly stung for years. Then came an even deeper wound. Camilla, once Anne's romantic rival, eventually became her sister-in-law when she married Prince Charles more than 3 decades later. Anne never fully accepted Camilla into the royal fold, and for good reason. She saw her as a woman who had slipped into the monarchy through the back door via scandal and betrayal. Camilla's affair with Charles, which ultimately contributed to the breakdown of his marriage to Princess Diana, caused a national outcry and nearly brought the monarchy to its knees. For Anne, a woman who values duty and integrity above all else, this history could not be erased. For years, Camilla kept her distance, reportedly intimidated by Anne's commanding presence. But everything changed once Charles ascended to the throne. Camilla began pushing boundaries, and Anne took notice. When Camilla insisted on being referred to simply as Queen rather than the traditional Queen Consort, Anne pushed back firmly and publicly. It was a line Anne would not let her cross, not without consequence. While the public watched royal ceremonies and polished photo ops, Sir Timothy saw what the cameras didn't. At first, he dismissed Anne's frustrations as part of her naturally blunt personality. But as time passed, he began noticing things, small, calculated moves by Camilla that didn't sit right with him. He saw how she inserted herself into royal matters, speaking for the king, managing his schedule, even giving unsolicited advice to William and Kate about their roles. What began as subtle influence slowly evolved into something more sinister. A quiet but clear power grab. As King Charles's health began to falter, Sir Timothy noticed that Camilla's tone shifted. She no longer acted like a supportive partner, but rather like a ruler in waiting. She started taking control of meetings, blocking family visits, and limiting the king's interactions with his siblings. Anne found herself turned away or left out, sometimes entirely excluded from family gatherings at Clarence's house. When Anne expressed concern, Camilla would deflect, painting her as too busy with horses and charities to understand real leadership. Sir Timothy started to connect the dots. He watched as glowing media coverage praised Camilla's so-called steadiness while barely acknowledging Anne's lifelong dedication or the growing responsibilities taken on by William and Kate. It was too coordinated to be coincidence. To Timothy, it was a deliberate PR campaign, crafted to position Camilla as the cornerstone of the monarchy even as she quietly sidelined the rest of the royal family. Then came the moment that changed everything. The 2025 royal ascot. As photographers flashed and the public cheered, King Charles appeared pale and weak, his battle with illness now visible. Standing nearby, Sir Timothy overheard Camilla lean toward an advisor and whisper chillingly, "This throne must remain in my hands forever, no matter what happens to Charles." Those words froze him in place. In that moment, he no longer saw Camilla as a complicated woman caught in a royal mess, but as a calculating figure with an agenda that threatened the very institution she claimed to uphold. Her ambition, he realized, had not been quenched by the crown, it had been fueled by it. Timothy began digging deeper. He uncovered troubling truths about Camilla's growing influence inside the palace, how she subtly manipulated Charles's isolation, positioned herself as indispensable, and quietly cast doubt on the heirs next in line. More disturbingly, he found evidence of a long-running strategy to keep Charles on the throne as a weakened figurehead, while Camilla operated with increasing control behind the scenes. The more frail Charles became, the more powerful she grew. This wasn't just palace gossip. It was a silent coup in progress. What Sir Timothy uncovered has rocked the royal household. His discovery paints a portrait of Camilla not as a loyal consort, but as a woman quietly consolidating power while shielding herself behind the king's declining health. A double-edged sword, one side comfort and support, the other, ambition and control. For now, the palace remains silent. But questions are rising fast. With Charles's future uncertain and succession looming, Camilla's place at the center of the monarchy is no longer just a matter of title, it's a matter of trust. And as the world watches, one thing is clear. Behind the ceremony and crowns lies a deeper struggle for power, legacy, and control.
Level of service, and that will remain.
Camilla reportedly made her demands with cold precision. Keep him alive for the public, she is said to have whispered to the doctor, but weak for me. If you speak or slip, I'll ruin you and your family. This wasn't the voice of a grieving wife. This was calculated power, weaponized in the most personal way possible. The doctor, cornered and terrified, faced a choice no human should ever have to make: his career and family, or the truth. And so, under duress, he complied. But that was only the beginning. While Charles's health was being quietly sabotaged, Camilla allegedly set her sights on something even more personal: Princess Anne's legacy. As Charles became more emotionally and physically vulnerable, Camilla pushed him to sign what appeared to be routine paperwork. But hidden among the legal documents were power of attorney forms designed to illegally transfer control of Princess Anne's charitable assets funds, entrusted to her by Queen Elizabeth II, into Camilla's hands. These were not mere financial accounts. They funded hospitals, youth programs, equestrian events, and other charities that had defined Anne's identity and service for decades. By attempting to strip them away, Camilla wasn't just seeking wealth, she was aiming to erase Anne's royal independence and legacy. She convinced the ailing king that ensuring her financial security was his duty as a husband. And burdened by illness, guilt, and years of loyalty, Charles agreed. So how did this web of deceit begin to unravel? It wasn't Sir Timothy Lawrence's suspicions alone that exposed Camilla's plan. It was a man no one expected: Edward Thompson, a low-ranking servant at Clarence's house. For years, Edward had seen the quiet threats, the subtle manipulation, the fear that surrounded Camilla. He said nothing until he witnessed her threatening the king's doctor in a private moment. Terrified but determined, Edward secretly recorded the conversation on his phone, hidden in his jacket pocket, his hands trembling. That single act of bravery made him the unlikely protector of the monarchy. When Sir Timothy received the footage, it hit him like a bolt of ice. The whispers, the tension, and suspicions, everything was suddenly real, undeniable. Camilla's ambition had crossed into something criminal. Timothy understood the gravity of what he held. With this evidence, he could either bring down the monarchy or save it from implosion. It wasn't just about Charles anymore. It was about the soul of the crown itself. But the hardest part was still ahead: telling Charles. When Sir Timothy showed the video to the king, it did not strike like a single blow, it came as a tidal wave. Charles was shattered. The betrayal wasn't just political, it was personal. This was the woman he had defended for decades against his family, against public backlash, even against his late mother's warnings. He recalled how Queen Elizabeth had always kept Camilla at arm's length. Even at their wedding, she avoided photographs with the couple. At the time, Charles had thought it was generational resistance. Now, her restraint looked more like foresight. The memories of chemotherapy sessions came flooding back: Camilla's soothing voice, her hand gently holding his, the comfort she seemed to offer. And now he knew, it had all been a performance, a lie wrapped in affection. But what pained him even more was the thought of how this betrayal would affect his children, his sister, and the people who had supported him through every stage of his life. The shame, the scandal, the fallout, it would stain everything he had built. For the first time in his reign, Charles doubted whether he had the strength or even the right to continue wearing the crown. When Prince William learned of the revelations, his response was swift and explosive. Known for his calm and composed demeanor, William shattered that image as he watched the footage of Camilla threatening the doctor. His face drained of color, then flushed with fury. To him, this was not just manipulation, it was slow, calculated treason. But his anger quickly turned into action. William insisted that this was no longer a family issue, it was a legal matter, and justice had to be delivered. With the evidence in hand, he took the lead. Princess Anne's reaction was far more heartbreaking. The usually steely and reserved royal broke down in quiet, furious tears. Her legacy built on service, discipline, and unwavering loyalty had nearly been stolen from her under the guise of royal paperwork. She remembered her mother's final wishes, how the late queen had worked to ensure charities and independence would never be compromised. And now Camilla had tried to dismantle it all for her own gain, and sorrow quickly hardened into resolve. She stood beside William, lending historical and emotional context to every piece of evidence. Her voice, though restrained, carried the weight of history and conviction. The Royal Council convened an emergency session. For hours, they pored over the details, weighing the political cost of exposing Camilla versus the moral and legal crisis she had created. But the facts left them no room to hide. One by one, even the most cautious voices conceded. If this conspiracy were allowed to continue, it wouldn't just destroy Charles, it would destroy the monarchy. Camilla was stripped of all executive and financial powers. Every asset she had tried to take from Anne was restored and placed under the joint oversight of Princess Anne and Prince William. From that moment forward, Camilla would be Queen Consort in name, only a ceremonial presence with no real influence. But the final decision from the council was chilling. The scandal must never be made public. The monarchy, already under pressure in a modern world, couldn't survive a public admission of betrayal from within. The truth would be locked away behind palace doors. For the sake of the crown, secrecy would be the final protection. Camilla had no idea her entire world was about to collapse. When she first heard that her secret had been exposed, she didn't respond with fear or remorse but with unrestrained fury. Her screams echoed through Clarence's house as she raged, realizing the empire she had built was crumbling. In her desperation, she made one final, horrifying decision. She ordered the elimination of Sir Timothy Lawrence. Her plan was sloppy. The plot was intercepted before it could take shape, and the attempt only cemented the council's view. Camilla was no longer just manipulative, she was dangerous, cornered and paranoid. She became a prisoner in her own palace. She paced endlessly, trying to find a way back to power. But it was too late. Then came the envelope, sealed with the insignia of the Royal Council. The letter arrived with quiet finality. Inside were cold, clinical words. Her role as Queen Consort was now purely ceremonial. All influence, all power gone. Witnesses say she sat in silence, the paper clenched so tightly in her hands it tore between her fingers. The dream she had fought decades for, of ruling beside Charles, of being remembered as a queen in her own right, was over. She didn't cry for the man she had betrayed. She cried for herself, for the power lost, the future erased, the control she would never regain. And just like that, the woman who tried to own the crown now sat alone in a palace that no longer belonged to her.